We hear the word overrated a lot, especially when talking about history. But what does it really mean to call an empire overrated? Is it just about the size and power they once held? Or is there more to the story? When we're talking about empires, overrated means that people think an empire was more important and awesome than it really was. It's about the perception versus the reality, the myths versus the facts. We often focus on the cool stuff, the big buildings, the winning battles, but we forget to look at the whole story. The grandeur of their architecture and the might of their armies often overshadow the darker aspects of their rule. Did the good things outweigh the bad? Were the achievements of these empires worth the cost in human lives and suffering? These are the questions we need to ask to get a balanced view. Did they really change the world in a good way? Or did they leave behind a legacy of exploitation and oppression? The impact of an empire is complex and multifaceted. These are important questions to ask. By examining both the positive and negative aspects, we can form a more nuanced understanding of their true legacy. In this video, we're going to look at two empires that people often say are overrated, the British Empire and the Roman Empire. Both are frequently cited as pinnacles of human achievement, but is that really the case? They both definitely left their mark on the world. Their influence can still be seen today in our laws, languages, and cultural practices. The British Empire was huge, covering a quarter of the planet, and it spread its language, laws, and culture everywhere. But it also left a trail of colonization, exploitation, and conflict. The Roman Empire, with its powerful army and amazing buildings, is often seen as a perfect time in history. Yet it was also a time of slavery, political corruption, and brutal conquests. But were these empires really as great as everyone says? Or have we been blinded by their impressive achievements and overlooked their flaws? Let's take a closer look at their stories from beginning to end. By examining their rise and fall, we can better understand their true impact on history. By looking at their good and bad sides, we can figure out if they deserve all the praise or if they're a little overrated. Only by understanding the full picture can we truly appreciate the complexities of these historical giants. The British Empire didn't start with conquering, it started with trading. Back in the 1500s, companies like the East India Company set up trading posts all over Asia because spices were big business. This focus on making money laid the foundation for what would become a massive empire. But trading soon led to fighting. The British had better weapons and smarter battle plans, so they started taking over. They took control of places like India, using rivalries between local groups to their advantage. They took resources and used people from these colonies to make Britain richer and more powerful. By the 1800s, the British Empire was at its peak. It was a time of immense power and influence for Britain, with its territories spanning across continents. The empire was a symbol of dominance and control, showcasing British might and ambition. It was so big that people said the sun never set on it. This phrase highlighted the vastness of the empire, with British territories scattered all over the world, ensuring that at any given time the sun was shining on at least one part of the empire. British influence was everywhere, with English becoming a world language and British ways of doing things spreading around the globe. From education systems to legal frameworks, British customs and traditions were imposed on many cultures, leaving a lasting impact that can still be seen today. But all this power wasn't built to last. The infrastructure and systems put in place began to show signs of wear and tear. The once mighty British military presence started to dwindle, and the empire's grip on its colonies began to loosen. Treating the colonies unfairly, getting rid of local cultures, and having a system where some people were much more important than others caused a lot of anger and pushback. The resentment grew as people in the colonies felt oppressed and marginalized, leading to widespread protests and demands for change. The empire's success came at a huge price, paid by the millions of people living under its sometimes cruel rule. The exploitation and harsh treatment of local populations created deep-seated animosity and a desire for freedom from British control. The two world wars in the 1900s were the beginning of the end for the British Empire. The wars drained Britain's resources and left the country economically and militarily weakened. The global conflicts also shifted the balance of power, making it harder for Britain to maintain its empire. The wars used up Britain's resources and weakened its power. The devastation of the wars left Britain struggling to rebuild, and the financial strain made it difficult to sustain its vast empire. People in the colonies wanted to rule themselves and started fighting for independence. Movements for self-governance gained momentum, with leaders like Gandhi inspiring masses to demand their rights and freedom from British rule. One by one, colonies broke away from British rule. The wave of independence swept across the empire, leading to the birth of new nations and the end of British colonial dominance. The Roman Empire's story is one of amazing and remarkable growth. Starting as a small town in Italy, Rome eventually controlled a huge area around the Mediterranean Sea. Their army, known as the legions, was super disciplined and highly effective, conquering nearby lands and making the empire bigger and bigger. But Rome wasn't just about brute force. They were also good at making deals and running things efficiently. They brought conquered people into the empire and set up ways of governing that, while sometimes harsh, kept things relatively stable and prosperous. The Pax Romana, a period of about 200 years, is often called the Golden Age of the Roman Empire. It was a time of relative peace and prosperity, and Roman art, literature, and architecture flourished. The Romans built roads, aqueducts, and amazing public buildings, many still standing today. But this romantic view of the Pax Romana often ignores what life was really like for many people. Slavery was a big part of the Roman economy, and most people's lives weren't that great. The empire was built on conquering and taking advantage of others, and not everyone benefited equally from Roman rule. Let's take a break from all the serious stuff and look at some fun facts about these two empires. Did you know that the British Empire, at its biggest, covered about a quarter of all the land on Earth? That's why people said, the sun never sets on the British Empire. The Romans, on the other hand, loved entertainment, and nothing was more exciting than gladiator fights. These brutal contests, held in huge arenas like the Colosseum, attracted enormous crowds and show us how much Romans liked violence and spectacle. So, were the British and Roman empires overrated? This is a question that has intrigued historians and scholars for generations. Both empires did some amazing things. They left indelible marks on the world that are still visible today. The British Empire had a huge impact on language, law, and culture around the world, spreading the English language to every corner of the globe. And the Romans left behind incredible buildings, engineering marvels like aqueducts and roads that have stood the test of time. They also developed a legal system that still influences us today, forming the foundation of many modern legal principles. But it's important to remember the bad parts of their history too. Both empires had dark sides that are often glossed over. Both empires were built on conquering, taking advantage of others, and controlling entire populations. Their expansion often involved brutal tactics and oppression. Their successes often came at the expense of other people. Indigenous populations were subjugated, and entire cultures were altered or destroyed. So while both empires deserve credit for what they accomplished, it's crucial to acknowledge the full scope of their actions. It's important to look at their history honestly without romanticizing or vilifying them entirely. By understanding both their good and bad sides, we can form a more balanced view of their legacies. We get a better idea of their real place in history, seeing them as complex entities with both achievements and flaws. Maybe then we can decide for ourselves if they deserve all the praise or if they are just a little bit overrated. In the end, it's up to us to weigh their contributions against their transgressions and come to our own conclusions. Thank you for joining me on this journey through history. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories from the past.